Welcome folks to day one of Special Projects pack number 12. Of course, aside from the one-off builds, this will mark 120 of these vehicles now in these project packs, which is kind of insane. If you line those all up in a picture, it would look like quite the car pack, I'm sure. But this particular one will be familiar to Forza players. This is technically slightly different to the one which is in Forza. It's the Petersen White Lightning 996 generation Porsche 911 GT3 RSR race car that ran at Le Mans. It's like the longest name ever, but that one in Forza, if I recall, I think is the number 31 car, I think it is. This is the number 90 replica, and although it will put some people off, I'm actually using Forza as the reference on the specs, because it's as good as any, as far as a game goes. You could reference something in real life if you wanted to, but I like the fact that in Forza you've got the weight distribution, you've got the weight, you've got the horsepower, you've got the engine size. It's all there and it's quite easy to reference. So as far as this one goes, you can't get it quite spot on to Forza, but it's more than close enough. And spoiler alert, of course I'll have put a link to grab the livery for this one and the design. It does need a wide body pretty obviously, but this one I could easily see, for many of you, being your favourite car of the pack. So we're starting really strong. This car is fantastic to drive. And in fact, it's about as quick as the newer 911 GT3 race car that I did at Road Atlanta, which is quite impressive. In fact, this 996 is a fantastic generation for building a race car out of. Now, as far as the tuning, of course, it's a race car. So many of the things are just pushed to the absolute limit. As far as, first of all, the sports section, we've got the stage 1 weight. As far as the club sports, you want your bored out engine, because incidentally, the vehicle does have a 3.8 litre engine in racing form. It's about a 438 horsepower vehicle as well in Forza. We're running pretty close, 436. The reason why it's not exact, as I've said before, is because if you really do want to restrict it to get exactly 438, you end up fitting things that you don't really want. So I didn't really want to do that. And I didn't want to restrict the car unnecessarily. As far as the weight, though, that is spot on to Forza, 1125 kilos. As far as the weight, of course, stage 2 as well. Power restrictor and ballast, naturally. For the semi-racing stuff, you want your racing crank, the fully customised ECU. Of course, you want your limited slip diff. Stage 3 weight. Perhaps surprisingly, I actually haven't gone for the body rigidity. You could, as you can see, it does improve the point level just a little bit. In practice, though, I would actually recommend trying it without it first, because I don't think you need it, to be honest. Give it a try before you fit that. So, like I said, I'm not using it, as you can see, and it's pretty damn fantastic without it. The polished ports, the balanced tuning, the stroked out engine as well, again for that 3.8 litre capacity. I love the fact that you can actually get up to that right size as well. You've got the race filter, race silencer. I actually don't have the manifold. Like I said, you don't want to overshoot the power and have to restrict it. We've got the racing pads, the racing discs. Like I've said before, it doesn't really matter if you go for drilled, slotted, or even the carbon ceramics. Obviously, ceramics don't really suit a race car quite as much, but you could go for it if you want to. We've got the race clutch and flywheel, race suspension, race transmission, and of course the racing hard tyres. For the extreme section, as I often do now, I've gone for the steering angle adapter to improve the turn-in corners. And for the ultimate section, there's nothing fitted there. So it's quite a straightforward build in terms of building it. It's mostly just fit the racing stuff pretty much. And then, as I said, just using Forza as that reference point with a 42.58 weight distribution. In Forza, it's 41.59, so you can't quite get close enough. But even so, I mean, that doesn't sound like an ideal weight distribution for something to have great handling, but, I mean, give it to Porsche, the credit where they're due. They really have honed in how fantastic a platform like that can be, even with the engine all the way at the back. Who would have thought the Beetle could have ended up being something so fantastic? Well, I guess Beetle fans would have known that. But as far as the tyres, of course, we've got the racing hards fitted. As far as the suspension, we've got 90mm on the front, 95 on the rear. So slight difference, but as you can see, the lower end is different anyway on that one. So it's still about right. 5 on anti-roll, 30 and 40 for the dampers, 2.95 for the springs, a whopping 3 degrees of camber, so pretty much the standard that I go for with a race car. 10 degrees out on the front for tow, 0.20 in on the rear. As far as the diff, I've opted for 10, 20 and 50. That suits me down to a T, so give it a try. If you want to change it, of course you could. As far as the transmission, it's a slightly closer ratio than some others. Of course, you could always change it as to your needs. There's no reason to stick with that, but I've got it on 300 kilometers, so that's up around 190-ish miles an hour, thereabouts. With 436 horsepower, that's about all I find it needs, especially with a lot of downforce, but it'll be up to you. You could click it up to maybe 320 if you need more top-end speed. As far as the restrictors, it is a little bit restricted on the ECU, just to get it to the right amount, or like I said, close to it, 96%. You want to add 72 kilos of ballast, and I've put that all the way to the front. Like I said, it's still not quite the same as Forza, but that's as close as we can go realistically. And as far as the downforce, I've opted for a high grip, high aero setting, rather than the slipperier low aero. So again, that'll depend on you and what track you're on. And over here, it's pretty simple because it's just all the stuff you already saw me fit. And even as far as points, it's actually pretty useful. It's on racing tyres, and it's only 711. So if you think about it, if you wanted to use this, for example, as a cash cow at Le Mans, or really any 700-point event, endurance or otherwise, you could easily put this on intermediate tyres instead, and boom, you're immediately under 700 with 9/10 of what make it as good as it is. So could be quite a useful car for career mode or even for online races, but obviously, with all of that out of the way, we do need to naturally jump out to Road Atlanta for me to show you what it can do. Now, of course, I already spoiled it at the start of the video by saying that this thing is fantastic. It's easily one of the best cars in this pack, and with a 911, you kind of expect that, and I love the fact that as Gran Turismo has evolved, you know, we've pretty much always had roof in there in one form or another, but with Porsche, it's that kind of evolution of, first of all, having roof because they couldn't have the licensing, and then they got Porsche in there, but I found that over the years, they seem to have gotten better in terms of how good you can make a 911. Like back in the day, the roofs were quick, but they were always quite challenging, and they still would be, and some of them still are. But with the 911 now, I don't know, there's something about the way you can tune cars now with the wider kit, the wider wheels, the kind of technical side of tuning as well, I guess, which just seems to accentuate the realism of the game a lot more, and they're a lot less challenging, a lot less intimidating, and surprisingly forgiving. This car is really forgiving to use, and it's properly quick. There's really not much else to say, it just really is that good of an all-rounder. It's good in a straight line, it's got fantastic grip, even on hard tyres, and through corners, it is just a pleasure to work with. I don't even have any notes in terms of using this thing, it really is just that nice to drive. If you're already a fan of my 911 builds, and I've done quite a few, I've done the Rally, I've done the GT3, now this one, the older shape GT3, it was a matter of time before I did this one, so if you do decide to use it, of course, I already know you're going to enjoy it, but absolutely, if you end up using it for like 700 points or whatever, let me know, and of course, stick around for the rest of the week, wherein I'll be dropping the other 9 builds in Special Projects Pack 12, but I'll see you then, and for now, thanks for watching.